Oh, my nails. Oh.
Oh, sweet.
Oh, I had the beer can this time.
You get there.
I have a Space Cat Brewing Company Sun Swept Blonde, which is a
There
very
you go.
fun name for a very drinkable beer that is really not hoppy at all by my taste, which is what I like.
All right then.
I like what I like over here. And I'm warming up to more IPAs. I am, as I explore a little bit more. But Chris, what are you drinking? It's the world is upside down today. I've got the beer. You've
Exactly.
got
Terrible. It's some. Well, it's French, but it's I don't even know what it is. A neighbor brought it, and it's from Provence. It's a rosé, a vin
oh,
rosé. It's not really my thing, but it was there,
yes.
and we're here, and it's feels like I need to finish off.
Need to have some of that. That's good. That's good. Well, you were having a fantastic time last night. No beers left in the house. Just partying it up over there,
Oh
Chris.
no, it wasn't exactly. We just had a neighbor over, and it was very spontaneous, and it was nice
Oh,
hanging out and talking
nice.
politics and neighbor gossip and all that good stuff.
Ooh, sounds good. That
We
sounds
got out of hand. It was all very civilized, but it was fun.
well. That sounds super lovely. Well, the last time that we were here online was 2 weeks ago with Amy C. Martin and SK Martin. It was an awesome reading, but last week we had the night off because we had our incredible August in-person open mic at Eco Evolution. And Chris, wasn't that just marvelous?
It was a night to remember, and our friend Philip, Mr. Midnight,
Woo!
was on fire. He was so on fire. I had to rush and get the fire extinguisher because I was really afraid.
It was just the best day. It was the loveliest time at the open mic and just a wonderful writer community time together. If you didn't see the posts, you got to go check them out. Just so much love, so much happiness, so much great writing and music and talent, comedy being shared. We had, of course, our amazing friend, Philip J. Curtis, aka Midnight, who's been on the stream several times, came out all the way out to Connecticut while visiting NYC.
Yep.
To visit with us. We had a dinner together and we got to hang out the whole evening. Getting to see him live was absolutely incredible. Go check out the video clips. We also had Matt Madden, who was on for Screenwriters Night. He was sharing some music, and all different kinds of great folks signed up. We shared some poetry. I shared some poetry. Chris, you shared some of the prison poetry that's going to be in the new book, perhaps?
Correct, Amanda.
Sing.
That was it. That was cool. And we had Autumn Harvest doing some comedy, and Phil Lemos drove down all the way from Massachusetts, like just hours and hours.
To be there with our community. Massachusetts people, we're looking at you. We're looking at you, people who live in Connecticut. Within the
Victoria, yeah, Victoria on there.
John.
From Norwalk, right? So
Yeah.
So she read a fantastic essay, and it was incredible. And Susan Davis is joining us from Colorado.
What? You're in Colorado and Midnight is here in New York? Oh my God.
Moving to Colorado. They bought a house.
Oh my God,
what? I just saw it on Facebook, and Susan, my congratulations. And my only question was, where are the mountains? It was like desert. It was like the desert part of Colorado. It was very intense and beautiful there.
Yeah. Well, that's fascinating. I need to catch up on Susan's social media. I was so busy with my coursework, and then I had my little getaway in Boston, which was lovely. And Chris, you got to see one of our live stream guests and friends, former FUMFA faculty member Pete Duval, this past week.
Yep.
And share with the audience, you were having some drinks, hanging out in NYC.
NYC, we were looking specifically for some dive bars.
Yes.
And we found one. The one we really wanted was closed for whatever reason. But we managed to find another one. We had a great time.
That's actually hilarious. The one we really wanted was closed.
It was. It looked like it may be closed forever. But anyway,
Oh.
we slept around, and it was a beautiful, sunny, warm day. And we wetted our whistles and caught up and had a great time.
That is absolutely lovely. That is so nice. And we'll have to get Pete back on here real soon. It'd be really great to hang out and get to hear him read again. But anyways, saying hi to Susan M. Davis, Melissa Slattery out there in the chat, Ryan Meyer, hello, welcome. And I need to give our official welcome to. I know. I'm 2 minutes late. To the FUMFA 105. Tonight we have with us Adele Annesi and Dawn Burns. We're very excited to get to hear them read very soon. But Chris, what else do we have coming up soon?
Well, let's see. We're off next week because it's Labor Day, and because we labor over this, we get the weekend off just out of respect for our toil.
Yeah.
And then the following week, we're going to have and that's the 9/11, which of course is a day a date we can all remember. Sandy Carlson will be reading with us, and then we have a to be determined second reader, but whoever it is, it's going to be fantastic.
It's going to be amazing.
On the 18th, we return to Echo Evolution on that Friday.
Woo!
The 16th of September, and we're going to have another open mic live in person, and we've got a couple of FUMFA folks, including AJ O'Connell is going to be there, Michelle Lee is going to be there, Barb Jennis, aka B. Fulton Jennis, who's the poet laureate of Ridgefield, is going to be there. And my neighbor, Karen Zimmer, will be there and play a few songs. She's very talented. Come down, and then, we're going to put the word out, and people can sign up and come on down and be a part of that.
Absolutely. Come on, see us in person, sign up, share your writing, share your music, share your comedy, your storytelling. It was such a marvelous time last Friday night, and we're so looking forward to this next one coming up. I also just want to say we're seeing more friends popping in the chat here. Philip J. Curtis is in the house. Midnight.
He's still working, right? He's still
he is still seeing people doing amazing things down in NYC. Hello to Be Brilliant BSJ, Mary Catherine Harper, Pete Nelson also in the house.
Pete Nelson says, "I am here for Adele."
Amazing. We love it. Oh, and Midnight says he'll be back in Colorado tomorrow. Susan, Philip, let's make this happen.
There's some Colorado spice.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Wait. So Susan M. Davis is officially moving to Colorado. Is this happening?
They bought a house. There's a picture on it. It's a lovely little home. They're on the Colorado plains or something.
It's not mountainous.
It doesn't. Well, the pictures I saw,
pictures don't look that way. Okay.
The mountains were behind the person taking the picture, but it looked lovely.
Oh my God, that'd be amazing if they met up. Oh my gosh, I can't wait for it to happen. It's gotta happen.
No, we might have to fly out there to see that.
I think we do. I think we should, Chris. We'll talk more about this, but we need to get into our readings for the evening.
Yep.
And I am very excited to welcome for us Adele Annesi. Welcome, Adele.
Hi, everybody. So good to see you all.
Ciao, Adele. Ciao.
Buonasera.
Bene,
Fantastic.
bene.
Bene.
Bene? Sono contenta.
So great to have you on, Adele. Hope you've had a fantastic weekend. I will share your bio with our audience. Adele Annesi is an award-winning writer, editor, and teacher. Her novel, What She Takes Away, acquired by Bordighera Press, is slated for publication in 2023, and she is co-author of Now What? The Creative Writer's Guide to Success After the MFA, a founder of the Ridgefield Writers Conference and Muse and Music, a book editor for Word for Words LLC, and a former development editor for Scholastic Publishing. Adele has published articles, columns, posts, reviews, and stories in 34th Parallel, Authors Published Magazine, Dawn Treader, Felifesta, Fresh Ink, Fringe Blog, Hamline University's Lit Link, Hot Metal Press, Midway Journal, Miranda Literary Magazine, Orca, the Pittsburgh Quarterly, Pyramid, the Ridgefield Press, the Washington Independent Review of Books, and Southern Literary Review, where she served as managing editor. That's awesome. Her work has been anthologized for Chatterhouse Press and Fairfield University, where she received an MFA in creative writing. Her essay on Italian citizenship is among the Clarion Award-winning essays about life transitions by women writers, and she received the Editor's Choice Award from the National Library of Poetry. Adele's sudden fiction has been adapted for the stage, and she has served as poetry and short story judge for the Danbury Cultural Commission. Adele has led a fiction seminar workshop for Manhattanville College MFA in Creative Writing. She also teaches and leads a mentoring program in fiction for Westport Writers Workshop. Whoop, whoop. She is a member of AWP, Acorn Storiers, the Connecticut Authors and Publishers Association, the Historical Novel Society, Pan America, and the Ridgefield Historical Society. Adele's long-running editor's blog is wordforwords.blogspot.com, and her website is Adele Annesi, blogspot.com. Check those out. But Adele, take it away.
All right. So it's so good to see you tonight. Thank you so much for coming. I'll be reading an excerpt from the novel What She Takes Away. And here's just a little bit of background on that. So this is the story told from two perspectives. From this perspective of Gia Falcini and her estranged father, Giovanni. So Gia Falcini's tightly woven world in Boston's North End unravels when a gift arrives from her estranged father for her birthday from her father in Italy. So Gia is co-owner of an ailing fabric store in Boston called Fiber. And she bought into this on quitting a promising career in fabric design and distribution, partly as a result of her father's decision to stay in Italy, leaving Gia and her mother Antonia to return to the States alone. But the weaver's shuttle turns after Gia's mother dies, and some years later, her father, a custom tailor, sends Gia a birthday gift, a scarf whose unusual fabric could entice the head of a top women's wear line to become a client. And they need clients badly at Fiverr. So ambitious and goaded by her business partner's ultimatum to bring Fiverr global recognition and quickly, Gia reluctantly reconnects with her father and departs for Italy despite her fiance's misgivings. So I'm starting with the father's perspective. This is Giovanni. We are now in Italy. It's a beautiful day, and Giovanni is awaiting the arrival of his daughter after a 16-year absence. She's now in her early 30s. The day had dawned as bright and clear as any Giovanni had seen of late. His daughter had chosen the perfect time of year to come, he thought, as he drove to the train station past the close-cropped hills to a sea that glimmered in the sunlight like that gold lame his wife Stella wore whenever she had the chance, though it too made her invariably look sallow. She should get some sun, he thought, wear silver, avoid yellow, something. But no one listened to the counsel of his own household. Giovanni stood at the station end of the platform in Marotta, listening to the cry of gulls overhead. Inhaling deeply the salt air, he recalled with renewed conviction why he had stayed here, despite the persistent agitation in the pit of his stomach like a washing machine, spinning, spinning, spinning. Giovanni turned and looked down the snaking line of train track, undulating like a mirage in the heat. Would he know her? Would he know his daughter after so many years and so much time and not even a picture, not one? No, but he would know her. What did photographs matter anyway? Down the track, a dark line of matchbox rail cars hugged the sandy curve of coastline. The crescendo of the train whistle pierced the air as the intercity from Rimini clipped along at a good rate of speed. Giovanni stepped back to the middle of the platform and heard the ping of the loudspeaker overhead, followed by dead air. Ah well, people use their cell phones now for timetables anyway. Looking up for the 10th time to check the track number, he waited until the train passed the city streets and squeaked to an unsteady stop in the station. The conductor eased himself down the steps and stood to one side to let the passengers exit. One woman, holding the arm of a squealing, unruly child, descended the rail car. "Stop fidgeting, Elisabetta," the woman said to the tot, who ignored her and dragged her along like a rag doll. Then a man in a rumpled, dun-colored suit stepped onto the platform and gazed around with a sense of importance. He would have fared better wearing a casual outfit, Giovanni thought, a shirt and pants that he could afford to have cleaned and pressed on occasion. Then an older woman, her black hair in a tight bun, gripped the handrail of the coach, eased down the steps, and followed the other passengers alongside the platform to the station house. Oddio, Giovanni thought, his head sweating under his cap. Had Gia missed the connection in Rimini? Well, and who could blame her if she had with these crazy schedules? Now he would have to try her mobile. Devil take the confounded things. He turned to see a woman step from the rail car, a girl really. No, a young woman. A young man at her side, but his daughter had mentioned no man. Had seemed in fact to emphasize the fact that she was coming alone. Yet in the young woman's smile, the toss of her ginger hair and dismissive gaze was something of his ex, Antonia. In the slightly crooked smile on her thin lips, something of him. The girl stopped, the woman stopped, glanced around him and down the platform, and then looked at him again. The deep chestnut eyes that once matched her hair loomed in the narrow, lightly freckled face that came to a point in a slightly jutting chin. Giovanni heard the whoosh of air brakes, the high whine of steel wheels turning. With a businesslike expression, the woman moved toward him. The man beside her, walking past as the train blew its whistle and pushed out of the station, picking up speed. The young woman planted her black suitcase with its garish red bow, hiked an orange bag up onto her shoulder, and extended a hand. Unable to control his nervous excitement, Giovanni gripped her arms and folded her into a strong embrace. Under the bright blue of an endless sky that made him want to hang on and on and on, he felt her letting go, too soon, too quickly. He stood back and met her eyes. He saw nothing there of what he wanted, nothing of what he had unreasonably hoped for. It would take time, he told himself. All of that would take time. "You are lovely," he said, meaning it. She was no classic beauty, that was clear, but she was interesting. Would have much more going for it, he felt. Limitless. A face one could take in and savor for a lifetime. Maybe two. She gave him a dubious look, then smiled an ironic twist to her lips. In her eyes, the shake of her head, he saw that she thought he had only noted her appearance because it was expected. Something any Italian man might say to any woman. Yet in the same eyes, at the same moment, he saw that she had laughed because she didn't believe in herself. "Truly, you are lovely," he repeated, though he knew on instinct that the more he pressed, the less she would believe. "You're staring," he smiled, to change the subject, his turn under the microscope. "I'm older, I know," he said before she could speak. It was easier, less painful to volunteer the obvious than to have someone else extract it. And you look well, she answered. He sucked in his breath, only just managing to suppress the exquisite pang in his chest that she had not called him dad or papa or babbo or anything. While he might not expect her to use such words at the start of a visit, he had hoped she would call him something endearing. When had she let such appellations go? Were these treasures he would never get back? Good to see you, she answered, apparently sensing the void. He nodded and clung to the words and the ephemeral hope that someday she might mean them. He squeezed her arm. It's wonderful to see you, too. Would they ever at any point rise above banality? He shook himself into the innocuous role of host. Just the one valise? The black case on wheels with the gawking red bow, which dear heaven must have been there since Antonia, his ex, was just large enough for a few days' gear. However, the orange plastic carryall slung over her shoulder, which looked to weigh 10 pounds empty, seemed a more tangible sign of her stay. I go back to Milan Friday, she advised. Remember I told you? Yes, of course. But she was here now. For a meeting to do with work. Am I understanding that correctly? She smiled. Your English is atrocious. He grinned. Ah, really? Let's hear your Italian. She flushed a deep shade of coral. In truth, I remember quite a few words, she said in formal Italian. Ah, good, very good. He tipped his cap. A good start and a load off, Giovanni felt, since it meant that Gia could communicate with Stella, his wife, and the others he wanted her to meet without his having to translate every word. He swiveled her case. Though smallish, it was dense as lead. Let's stop for a coffee before we go home. She stopped in the middle of the platform, blocking an older man with a briefcase who glared as he brushed past. His first mistake, he chided himself, conferring home on a town she hadn't seen in a dog's age. He started to reach for her hand to say he was sorry, as he had in all the letters she had never answered. But this was no time for apology, a tack he had taken often enough in 16 years to know wouldn't work. He saw her face soften briefly and thought his mood must reflect in his eyes. There's a place nearby, he said, with very good cafe latte. We can get a brioche. Her expression wasn't a smile, really, in response, just a willingness to suspend hostility and accept as a sort of bribe the breakfast she had loved as a child. I could use the caffeine, she answered, and fresh air after that train ride. A generation later and the intercity still doesn't have air conditioning? Not a high priority, Giovanni said, with everything else to consider. He moved down the platform. My car is this way. He led her down the steps of the underpass. The sound of her suitcase banging against the cement echoed off the tiles in a space empty of words. Yet within him was a void that needed words. But what to say, since the usual small talk felt forced? This way. He nodded at the stairs leading up to the street level. I don't know if you remember the station before, but they remodeled. He turned to watch her take in the small, tidy lobby in sea green and auburn tile, the new ticket agent's booth. It's nice, she said. Clean, she added, though he saw she was looking out the open doorway to the street, where the first stage of rush hour traffic had already clogged the main thoroughfare. Gia followed her father across the cracked asphalt lot to a shabby white Fiat Punto. She watched as he opened the hatch and fumbled to lower the extension handle on her suitcase. She stepped in front of him. This way, she instructed, squeezing the crossbar. Your old man can still handle a bag, he cut in. Hoisting the case, he shoved it in the empty trunk, wheels first. Now to get out of here, he mumbled. He wiped his brow and stared at the street. Good thing you did not come during the lunch hour. Isn't this worth, she said, the afternoon crush after nap time? He laughed, coughed slightly. Who takes naps anymore? People are either rushing home from an early shift or out to the late. Those out of work just rush not to lose the habit. It's unlocked, he said, nodding at the passenger door, and went around to the driver's side. For a moment, Gia stood listening to the sound of the traffic like a song, the grinding beat of truck gears, the counterpoint meep of horns, A current of air carried the aroma of roast garlic and rising dough from the pizzeria across the road, where two crusty old fellows sat on rickety stools drinking Peroni. Beside them, a young student nodded to an unheard rhythm, minuscule white earphones dangling from long earlobes. As much as the North End might remind her of here, it wasn't the same. Not even the scent of herbs and yeast or the sight of old and young together. And on looking closer, she saw that the elders faced the street and the student was staring at nothing in particular. His book bag zipped shut, the iPhone, an older model. Get in, her father said. The cafe is just up the road. She got in the car and closed the door. As she grasped the seatbelt, he shifted into reverse. The Punto lurched and sputtered. She pushed herself back from the dash and quickly buckled the seatbelt. In Boston, they hadn't owned a car, so her father rarely drove. As a result, his piloting of rentals here had produced tight-knuckled excursions along hillside roads, wound tight as clock springs with barely enough room for one car and a practice driver. These dizzying expeditions from his village to the sea had nauseated her mother and forced her to focus on the floorboards. Her father punched the gas, jiggled the shift. Piece of crap, he muttered, maneuvering past the other cars and out to the street. The A14 is busy, she said, watching the exasperated car drivers and moped drivers cursing and gesticulating to each other and everyone else along the formerly sedate route. And there are sidewalks. He looked over. They've been here a while, along with the traffic lights they put in every few meters. They swirled around a rotary that managed the flow of vehicles in front of a broad, white, two-story structure that recalled the shopping mall in Burlington. She stared out the window. Is that a new mall? Her father threw up a hand. Yes, the thieves. Taking all the business from the shopkeepers. It's the same in the States, she said. Ha! Her father shook his head. It's worse here. She looked at him. Why worse here? Because it was happening to them? Her father turned left under a railway overpass and down the beach road along the seaside. Devoid of tourists, most shops were closed, sliding doors secured with weathered 2x4s. They made a quick U-turn, coasted into a parking space in front of a small cafe with a boarded-up front window. Now here is a place that still makes good cafe latte and fresh brioche, her father said. Not like that sludge and rubbish in plastic. He sat back and stared at her. My, but you are lovely. She felt a flash of heat. Why do you say that when it isn't true? He shook his head with a melancholy look. You still sell yourself short, don't you? She turned and yanked the door handle. What right had he to pronounce on who she was or wasn't, what she did or didn't think of herself? No, she thought, it was a trap into disclosure, a perk she wouldn't offer and he didn't deserve. She got out of the car and slammed the door. He got out and motioned to the side of the cafe. This way. He closed the door and walked across the street through a gravel courtyard to the open section of the bistro, its tiny takeout window unseen from the street. If the proprietors need business, why do they set themselves up like this? She asked. Nobody can tell they're open. Her father shrugged. It's off-season. The owners need a break from all the riffraff, the marocchini who don't spend money but walk the beaches hawking their wares. He tapped the small black and silver bell that sat on the splintered window ledge. A robust middle-aged woman appeared at the window, her small dark eyes alert above plump tan cheeks. Ah, prego, the woman said with something like relief at seeing them. She wiped her hands on the white apron in a gesture that appeared to be more out of habit than cleanliness. Two espressos, macchiato, please, her father said, and a brioche for my daughter. The woman nodded and smiled, but with a quizzical look, perhaps taking Gia for a foreigner, as had the woman on the train. She had been mistaken for French on another visit, too, to St. Peter's in Rome, in a moment that hadn't set it all well with her mother. Antonia had looked her up and down with a, it's that light skin and freckles like your father, she accused. Standing straighter, Antonia walked out into the sunlight that burnished her naturally olive skin, a byproduct of what hereabouts was referred to in dialect as Basitalia, Lower Italy. Good day, Gia said in proper Italian. The woman's smile broadened. And to you. She wiped her hands again, went to the coffee maker. Please accommodate yourselves. She gestured to a smattering of empty chairs and tables with a view of the azure sea. Gia watched as her father extracted a sheaf of napkins from the dispenser, went to the nearest table, pulled out from under it 2 white plastic chairs, gave the chairs and table a swipe, then stuffed the used napkins into the center hole that usually held an umbrella. He stacked the other napkins on a table and, taking a chair, turned it toward the shore. Gia shook her head. So given the chance even now, he still preferred the sea. If she hadn't needed the fabric, she would have hailed a cab for the train station. She went over and took the other seat. So tell me, Bella, what is this work that brings you to Italy? She gazed out at the water striated in shades of aqua, sapphire, violet. She couldn't tell him why she was here exactly, but she had to tell him something to set off the subject of the material. His debt was greater than this, but it was a starting place. I'm here to see a prospective client, she said. He's out on the West Coast, but in Milan for Fashion Week. Friday is the only time we can meet. The cafe owner brought a tray with 2 small white cups, matching saucers, the brioche in a little white dish exuding a warm, buttery aroma. Please enjoy. The woman set the tray on the table. Running her finger along the stylish demi-tasse with the blue and white logo, Gia noted the lighter weight ceramic, better for warm weather, she thought, since it allowed the coffee to cool quicker. It was probably less expensive, too, especially during careless summer using. Her father leaned across the table and clinked his cup to hers. Well, no matter what reason has brought you here, we are glad you come. Gia took a sip of espresso, its fragrant froth melting into deep, rich flavor that seeped into her core. She took a section of the airy brioche, sweet, light, flaking, probably about 1,000 calories. Taking a napkin from the stack, she wiped her fingers. I want to thank you for your gift, she said. Looking up, she noted the pinprick of light in his eyes. September can be chilly in Boston, as you recall. So the timing is appropriate. The colors, too, russet and amber and paisley, autumnal, academic. Nice work. And the yellow gold in the center of the repeat, very vibrant. She could see he was pleased that she not only liked the piece, but understood the depth of the design. She took a bit of brioche. Even more interesting is the fabric. Light, touchable, wearable. The hem looks like yours, but the material. She looked at him. Your background is in tailoring, not textiles. Her father touched his gnarled fingertip to his lips, his eyes unseen behind the dark glasses. I am glad to hear you like the gift. As for the fabric, he gave a shrug. I have always appreciated good material. As with any competent tailor, he looked out at the water. We do still have a fair amount of talent here, in many areas. These other areas, Gia pressed, they include textile design. I know something of it from school, but it's a specialized field, so intricate, and art, really. Competitive, too. Her father turned and looked at her. All fields have their struggles, their competitions. Some more than others, she answered. You didn't stick with it then, he said. Textiles, I mean. I'm better at selling, she answered. Really? I wouldn't have guessed it of you. And what could he have accurately guessed of her over a decade and a half of years and 4,000 miles?
Woo!
Bravo, bravo.
See, I'm like so in this conversation. I can't believe our time is up. I'm in the scene. I'm eating the brioche. I'm looking at the sea. I'm feeling the tension. Oh, so good.
I was looking at the clock and I went, what?
What?
Going so fast.
Ow.
That's it.
I can't help but notice your lovely scarf there, Adele.
I noticed it as well. As soon when you start talking about that, let's look at that.
Where did you get that fabric, Adele? Where did you get that? It's a secret. You're not going to tell, are you? Okay.
Oh, Adele, that was just so delightful. I'm so involved with these characters. I'm really enjoying my little trip through Italy right now. Like that is just so great. We can't wait. We can't wait to read more and to hear more about this story. That is so awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adele. We'll have you back in a few moments.
Yes.
And people have questions for Adele about her novel, about Italy, about fabric, whatever. Put them into chat.
Yes. So yes, pop your questions in there. 9 o'clock, Adele will be back. But thank you once again, Adele Annesi. Awesome work. And we're excited now to welcome our second reader of the evening. We are delighted to introduce to you Dawn Burns. Welcome, Dawn.
Hello, thank you.
How are you doing this evening?
Doing very well. Enjoying a quiet evening at home. It was great to hear Adele read. So looking forward to sharing my stuff. Thank you.
Absolutely. We're so excited to hear you. Chris, go take it away. Share Dawn's bio, Chris.
Here we go. Dawn Burns is a writer of fiction and creative nonfiction and founder and co-organizer of the SwampFire Retreat. She was the recipient of an Ohio Arts Council Individual Excellence Award in Fiction and has twice received the Paul Summers Prize for Creative Prose from the Society for the Study of Midwestern Literature. And as an Ohio boy, I appreciate that very much. Dawn's book, Evangelina Today, tells the story of Evangelina McQuarrie, an Indiana housewife who may appear simple and uncomplicated, but whose rich inner life is revealed as she prays for Downton Abbey characters, watches cockroaches, thinks about teeth, and ponders the worth of her unhappy life in hopes that it might one day change. Dawn's writing has appeared in many publications. I'll name a few: Women Under Scrutiny, an anthology of truths, essays, poems, stories, and art; Gemini Magazine, The Offbeat, and Mid-America. She's an assistant professor at Michigan State University, teaches in the first-year writing program. She's currently compiling 5 years of writing and sunrise photographs over Indiana's Lake Wawasee into her book, and this is a great title, Dawn at Dawn, Sunrise Reflections. To find out more, you can visit her at Dawn Burns, that's Dawn, D-A-W-N, of course, B-U-R-N-S, 42.com. Take it away, Dawn.
All right. Thank you so much for the intro. I'm going to take my glasses off because otherwise there's a big glare. And I can read close up, so I think we're good to go. Thank you for that introduction. I am going to be reading selections from Evangelina Every Day, which was published by Cornerstone Press this past March, actually. All you really need to know about it is a collection of short stories that together form a larger narrative arc. And I've decided to do something a little bit different tonight. Usually I read one or two rather short pieces and then do a longer story. But I have selected 6 relatively short pieces. They are sequential. They go in the general order of the book. I think they all stand alone and will make a certain amount of sense. And just looking forward to sharing them with you. So I'm going to start with the opening piece, which is titled Evangelina Feels Adrift. This alone should tell you a little bit about Evangelina's life. Evangelina feels adrift. I feel adrift, Evangelina said, sitting at the kitchen table reading, but not really reading, the Elkhart Truth as Russell went about his business, preparing a fire for the night, because on cold December nights, that is just what they had come to do over their 21 years of marriage. Go put a sweater on, Russell said, not looking up from the assortment of shredded newspaper, dryer lint, and twigs he meticulously saved for nights like this. Evangelina folded over the Truth and pushed herself back from the table, stood and walked the short hall to the long hallway closet full of neglected jackets, coats, and sweaters, only one of which, her worn burgundy sweater, appealed to her. Evangelina felt both heavy and not standing there. She slipped the sweater from the hanger and shrugged herself into it. She felt, she thought again, both heavy and not. It did not matter that Russell had misheard her, that he had thought she had said a draft. Evangelina did not need to correct Russell because she knew she couldn't really ever correct him, that she could never explain herself to his satisfaction, and she was so very tired from trying. As she pulled the sweater snug around her body, she said softly and only to herself, "I feel adrift." We're going to hop ahead a couple stories past her praying for Downton Abbey characters into a story called Evangelina Goes to a Christmas Cookie Exchange. The morning after the Christmas cookie exchange, staring into the unlidded box of cookies on the kitchen table before her, Evangelina asked herself, was last night fun? Evangelina could not decide. Waiting for her morning coffee to brew, Evangelina stared at the cookies in what she recognized to be a poor attempt to draw her attention away from the befuddling nightmare that had been the party and onto the object of the party itself, made so reliably of flour, sugar, butter, chocolate, mint, molasses, smears of peanut butter and pinches of salt, teaspoons of baking soda and baking powder, pounds of powdered sugar and ounces of cream cheese, and probably somewhere in some batter somewhere, rum and Kahlua and who knew what else. On the whole, Evangelina did not know what to call these cookies, and this bothered her more than she could admit. Evangelina's contemplation of ingredients made her stomach lurch, so she pulled back, broadened her perspective, focused on the cookies as complete and separate entities, searching for the ones she had names for. Monster cookies, raspberry thumbprint cookies, for which she knew the name because it had been displayed, peanut butter fudge, not technically a cookie, but still she was pleased to find it on the table, and most reliably, peanut butter blossoms, those sugar-sanded peanut butter wonders affixed with Hershey kisses in their dimpled tops. 4 people out of the 23 at the party had brought peanut butter blossoms, so proportionally, Evangelina had ended up with more peanut butter blossoms than any other cookie. 3 of the 4, she remembered from last night's circuit around the Christmas tree wrapping papered pool table, had used the full-sized individually wrapped kisses, and 1 had used the miniature kisses found in bags in the Martin's baking aisle just above the coconut and below the Nestle chips. Evangelina, though she had not said this at the party full of strangers, felt that using pre-packaged miniature kisses without the silver foil wrappers was a sort of cheating, a kind of laziness. Had her friends Krista and Toby Ann showed up to the party, Evangelina would have whispered this clever insight to them. But they had not showed, had they? Evangelina winced, tamped down a spark of betrayal. Martyrdom did not suit her, after all. Evangelina scanned the box in search of the lemon-frosted sugar cookie and the silver dollar-sized chocolate cookie with peppermint frosting, both of which had, when the cookies were finally exchanged, looked appealing even in the yellow glow of the Purdue University lights of the hostess's basement. Evangelina could find neither, and she was reluctant to dig and add to the sad erosion of cookies that had already begun. Evangelina shuddered. Had she really been at that dreadful woman's house for 4.5 hours? Had she really been all alone amidst strangers who spent the night downing Jell-O shots topped with vodka-infused whipped cream and talking about... What? What had they talked about? Turning over some variety of a no-bake cookie in search of peanut butter fudge, Evangelina tried to remember, but all she could recall was an hour-long 3-way cost comparison of athletic uniforms, football, volleyball, and basketball, for the guests' high-performing high school varsity children. Evangelina, who had no children and found Russell quite enough work to care for, had nothing to add. How was it again she had even been invited to this party? She asked herself. Oh yes, Krista and Toby Ann had said she would get cookies enough to freeze and pull out 2 weeks from now for Christmas without having to bake any more. And had Evangelina's two friends she had thought before last night to be good friends, really not shown up at all? "We hate this party," Krista had said when they ganged up to invite her. "But the cookies are good," Toby Ann countered, "and I'm bringing molasses crinkles, which I know you love." "Come on, we'll keep each other company," pleaded Krista. "We'll leave before they start doing shots and getting stupid." "We'll leave before she gives her house tour," Toby Ann said. "Oh, God, the tour." "We'll leave before she can even suggest a group selfie in her walk-in shower," Krista promised. What was it that Krista and Toby Ann had promised repeatedly? "If you go, we'll go, but we're not walking in there alone. Eat some snacks, have a glass of wine, get the cookies, and run." And what was it that had happened? Evangelina thought, with hardly a crumb of bitterness, hardly even caring that on Facebook she had been tagged in a photo standing awkwardly with a group of drunk women in a walk-in marble shower at the home of a woman who was not and never would be her friend. What was it again that had happened? Evangelina asked herself, as though the evidence in the box in front of her was not enough to convince her even now. Evangelina had gone to the Christmas cookie exchange, but her so-called friends never showed. Okay, we're going to skip ahead a couple more stories. Very short piece called Evangelina Takes Her Husband for a Medical Procedure. Evangelina did not like the way the chair in Dr. Flandel's surgical suite hit her just below her shoulder blades, and she did not like having to watch Russell, laid out in his blue-striped hospital gown, fondling the doctor's stress ball, a transparent bag of silicone imprinted with the words "sample, do not implant" in bold capital letters. "Come over here and get a feel of this, Evangelina," Russell said, squeezing and unsqueezing the breast implant the doctor had left with him. "Now this is a boob." Evangelina willed herself to stay seated and to keep her mouth shut, distracting herself from her rising rage by pressing her back against the chair, rolling her shoulder blades over the top, then down and back into place. This she did over and over, directing herself to look anywhere but at Russell, who was still fondling the breast in a bag. But wherever she looked in the small room, she could still see him out of the corner of her eye. Evangelina looked at the clock on the wall. 10:14. Dr. Flandel was now 14 minutes late from when Russell's procedure was supposed to have started. A nurse had come in on time to check Russell's vitals, and then the doctor had stopped by briefly to hand Russell the implant while he waited. "Feels real," Russell had said, jiggling the disembodied breast in his cupped hands, and the doctor said, "I know, right?" And then Russell had said, "And it can't even say no," to which they both laughed. Evangelina hated them both, felt they deserved each other. She couldn't wait for Russell's proctologist to return so she could leave and he could suffer. Sometimes Evangelina goes out into the world and has experiences. This is one of them. Evangelina feels a tickle. Standing at the PetSmart checkout, Evangelina felt it. That newish tickle that happened now and then in the right front pocket of her jeans. It was a private sensation, this momentary tickle against her leg, something meant for her and only her. Evangelina hated ringtones at any volume, and the personalized tones people used to match callers' personalities were always so subjective, she thought, having more to do with the person who set the tone than the actual caller. Little judgments. That's what they were. Ringtones, even those that just sounded like a ringing telephone, were brash, obnoxious, and declamatory, and Evangelina did not need everyone knowing her business. Still, she did like the tickle. Oh, sure, Evangelina knew most people called it a buzz, and the phone manual called it vibrate. But when she slipped her hand inside her pocket and her fingers glided over smooth glass, she felt that yes, of all the possible words to use, tickle was the best of all. She pulled out her new phone, a Moto G from Republic Wireless she had insisted on, even though Russell said she didn't need to be that connected all the time, and in truth to spite him, because she, a grown woman, could make her own damn choices. Evangelina pressed the small black button on top, entered her passcode, poor Edith, and checked her voicemail. A dental cleaning reminder. Nothing personal. Of course not. Not today when all her friends were either at work or on vacation. But they were on Facebook. So she touched the little blue square with the friendly white F, and another world opened up to her. A little red square at the top with the number 1 inside popped up against the backdrop of the globe, a symbol of the world, of universal connectedness. Evangelina was hopeful. She would readily admit that she was new to this smartphone world and newer still to Facebook, but she had 36 friends now, and they were always posting things of interest. Well, of interest to them, Evangelina thought, but not always of interest to her. Still, she was hopeful that this post would be of interest. So she lifted her finger and brought it up to the small red square and rested it there, just for a second, until Lisa Nicely's post revealed itself. I ask for American on my burger and Steak and Shake gives me Swiss. WTF. Morons. Evangelina sighed, slid the phone back into her pocket, and watched as the man with the cart full of cans of Friskies salmon pate moved forward and placed just one can on the counter. This man, Evangelina thought, was a good customer. She felt a slight thrill that she was waiting behind a man with 100 or more items in his cart, but all the same barcode, which could be scanned once and multiplied by the cashier. Simple, clean, efficient. She studied the man's navy blue pea coat covered with cat fur of all colors and wondered how many cats he had, whether he lived alone with all of them. Evangelina knew that if she were ever to have more than her Duchess, Russell would have none of it, would have none of her. Evangelina would have to move out, live alone, buy cases of Friskies to feed all the cats she would surely accumulate in her despair? In her freedom? Evangelina didn't know how a life with cats but not a husband would be, but in that moment she wondered if it might be better. She watched the man remove crumpled bills from his wallet with his ruddy and wrinkled right hand, along the back of which was a red, raw scratch, fresh and puffy. His hand trembled as he handed the bills to the cashier, and his age worried Evangelina. What if he died alone? What if his cats ate him? Evangelina shut out the thought, determined he was a fool and not somebody she could ever become. She had given her heart to Duchess and would give her heart to no more, and she would let the stability of her marriage be enough. After 22 years together, Russell wasn't going anywhere, and neither would she. No. Again, the tickle. Or was it? She wasn't sure, but she pulled her phone from her pocket just in case, lit up the screen, entered "Poor Edith," and saw there were no new notifications. But surely something had happened in the space of time since she had last looked. So she opened Facebook and scrolled through pictures of kittens, a meme about Obamacare, the thoughts and happenings of her non-preferred friends. Then the cashier's voice broke through. Ma'am, I need you to put your phone away and place your items on the counter. Evangelina's face flushed. She had never wanted to be one of those rude phone users who held up lines and didn't talk to people around them, didn't notice anything but their glowing little screens. But here she was, having crossed over, having become a person she despised. She put her phone in her pocket and placed on the counter a bag of Iams Proactive Health-Sensitive Digestion and Skin, a 10-pack of catnip mice, and a new blue cat bed Duchess didn't need but at 60% off, she couldn't pass it up even if Russell didn't approve. He'd just have to get over it, like he had gotten over the 52-inch faux fir cat tree and condo she'd bought last month. Evangelina knew the etiquette of not answering her phone or looking at messages, but still she had, and now she had been shamed. But what could she say, really, to the cashier? Nothing. Sometimes Evangelina felt like the woman in that Old Testament story. She didn't know the woman's name, never seemed able to remember it, and why should she? Maybe the woman didn't even have a name, or rather hadn't been given one in the story. For everybody had a name, right? Even a concubine. But how could a name even be remembered against such horrors? What was it that had happened to her? Had she been raped? Her body defiled? Raped until she died? Yes, that was it, wasn't it? And then she had been made a warning to others, hadn't she? That much Evangelina felt certain she remembered. Cut up into how many parts? Legs, arms, hands, feet, toes, kneecaps, elbows, everything. Cut off and scattered to how many places? 12? She thought for sure it was 12. One for each tribe. Evangelina wondered what had happened to the woman's heart. The story hadn't said. Sent someplace far away, she was sure, never to reunite with all the other parts of her. That's how Evangelina felt. Scattered, like she was far flung in all directions with only her mind still here to remember, sort of remember, having ever been whole. Evangelina never knew what to make of these feelings when they came upon her. It was like knowing she had once been, wondering whether she had ever been whole and connected and useful in some way. Oh, certainly, in many ways it was better this way. Better not to feel everything all at once as a creature like the red-tailed hawk she had seen sitting on top of the telephone pole at the edge of the highway one frozen February morning at sunrise. She had seen it from a distance, so still, like a statue, but so focused, so concentrated, like a ball of energy had been made solid and taken form in this hawk that watched and waited, that just was. She knew when it moved, when it finally flew, it would be with purpose, with intent to kill. But wasn't that the way of the wild? It wasn't the way of her life. And she sometimes wished it were. Checking to see how I'm doing on time. Super quick. I've got enough time to finish off. Two more short pieces. Next one. Evangelina dreams of a train. Evangelina fell asleep in her lazy boy, her phone still aglow with the BBC headline, Trump retweets quote attributed to fascist leader Mussolini. And then she dreamed of a train going somewhere and she on it, thinking maybe at the end there was a vacation destination and that she had won this trip. Only there were so many on this train and standing room only, and she was walking toward where she believed the bathrooms were. Only there were no bathrooms, just a little dip in the flooring so the muck wouldn't run upwards. And she was advised to slide her shoes back on before getting that far. And this was her first real sign that maybe there was not, after all, a vacation destination awaiting her at the end of this line, which was when everything shifted. And Evangelina found herself outside at a train station watching a stopped train as it began to pull out of the station. And in her hands, she held red potatoes with words carved into them, words that were poems that were potatoes. And so she hustled up to the front of the train, handing out potatoes to passengers who reached out their hands, feeling she wasn't doing enough, but she was doing something, and that maybe these potatoes, these poems, would fill a hunger in some. And the last piece for tonight. Evangelina looks at the moon. One night, when her mind and body were a clutter of thoughts and feelings, Evangelina knew herself to have been seen by the rising yellow moon, so full and calm in its ocean of sky. And understanding herself to have been seen, Evangelina felt herself drawn back down to earth, to quiet, to a stillness that was also a motion, the planets and atoms and all of her always in motion, looking up to the sky, and the moon rising full and yellow to pull her back into herself. Thank you.
Wow, really, really powerful and vivid pieces about Evangelina here. I'm really in her life and hoping that she doesn't have to feel so adrift anymore.
Yes. Well, like I said, the whole book is a collection of short pieces. Some of the stories are longer. I didn't read those ones.
Yeah.
Yes, but thank you.
Oh, Chris, weren't they just vivid and so poignant and so like honest, like brutally honest? I love this. I loved getting to know her character here.
I know, and we'll for Q&A time, but I have questions myself about the interconnected stories and all that, and but for now I'm really hungry for cookies, and there were just so many cookies, and I was just like,
Chris was just like, I want all those cookies in my cookie swap little container right now. That is so great. And I love that. That's beautiful. The beautiful image, that the metaphor with the potatoes and the poem.
yes, lovely.
Beautiful.
You should do that, Katie. You should do that. Potato poems.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe I can find a way to do cookie poems. That'd be
there you go.
Extra delicious. Well, we need to bring up both of our guests from this evening so that we can get started with our Q&A. Another round of applause for Adele Annesi and Don Burns.
It's beautiful.
Yes. Oh, both of you, just these incredible readings. And Chris and I, every time we do our feature readings, we find these beautiful kind of commonalities between what is shared. And so we have these kind of these characters, who we're kind of seeing the world through these women and these very like intricate, quiet moments, this vivid imagery, and it's kind of another serendipitous connection here, Chris.
So true, and also food. We have those cookies, the aforementioned cookies, and we got the brioche and all that good stuff.
I'm taking in calories just listening.
I'm not being flippant. I think it's like
it's
hard to write about food and make an impact.
Right, and to make it vivid, to make it meaningful, to have it fit in, kind of just absolutely perfectly, to have it kind of become a beautiful metaphor for a moment. It's so beautifully well done, and kind of making us want to be there and participate and to feel that. It's really awesome. Well, let's get our Q&A. Audience, get those questions in the chat.
Get the questions. We've got one or two in there now, but keep them coming.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start off with our famous first question, right?
Here's the question, Chris.
Okay, let's start with Adele. Adele, tell us, how has writing changed your life?
The short answer to that is that I actually feel saner when I write. There is something about getting what's in my head out of my head and onto a page that excises so many things. And then I find that when I read back what I've written, there's a relationship between what's going on within and what's on the page. So I think writing has changed my life in that way, but it's also brought me closer to other people. And at the same time, it's caused distance in some ways because you can't always write.
Right.
In fact, I can't write very well with people around. So it's odd that way, but it's changed my life for the better, I think, in general. And that's for sure. Not the least of which because I met all you guys. So it's had, yeah, I've said to friends about the MFA program that it was worth the investment just to meet the people.
I completely agree, Adele. All the time, I say that, you know, for there are so many reasons it was worth it for me, but that's honestly one of the biggest the biggest ones for sure. And I think you put that into such perfect words about how, you know, you said writing makes you saner, and by you know, by articulating these things on the page, taking them out from you, you're able to understand them, you're able to understand yourself better, and then you have this community. You know, we really feel that that's super duper resonates. Thank you so much.
It's a positive version of self-medicating.
Yeah.
So many ways, so little time.
Right? It's like all these things ricocheting around in your head, and then you know, instead of, you know, doing crystal meth or, you know, like bungee jumping in New Zealand or something like that, you write a novel.
It's very affordable in that sense too.
Safer usually.
Yeah.
Not always, sometimes.
It takes longer sometimes, you know, to get the full set, but if you're patient.
The great Baron Wormser once said that imagination, you know, as in writing, you know, as you're writing, you know, imagination is the best legal way to get out of your conscious mind. I will never forget that. He said that in a workshop.
So right. So right. I mean, look at, and as far as the people part goes, because of this, we're still meeting people. I mean, things like this, it's wonderful. That part, yeah, good stuff.
That's right.
Totally.
All right, Dawn. So how has writing changed your life?
Well, I'd like to copy and paste a good bit of what Adele has already said, because I would say my experience is very similar. You know, it has made me a better person. And when my kids were very young and I would be going crazy and I would go out and write, I had this revelation one day: I'm a better mom when I'm writing.
Wow.
Whether it's raising kids or doing other work or being in other relationships, I am better at everything else when I am writing, because I'm feeding that part of my soul.
Yes.
That really only engaging in active writing can do. And so for me, writing has changed my life by giving me a focus that's beyond me, but that also lets me go deeper into myself. Though since I primarily write fiction writers, or at least myself, I'm very good at saying, it's not about me, it's all outside of me. And I often think that when I'm writing, but then later as I go back, I'm like, okay, this makes certain things make sense. So I think certainly on that personal level, that's true. Also, again, just to reinforce what you all have said, that community of writers and artists. I've been doing a Swamp Fire retreat for well over a decade now, and those connections that I make to other people who are also creating, sometimes in their own little bubbles, being able to get together and share that experience, you know, share the work. I think that certainly has made my life richer and more meaningful.
That is so awesome. You know, we can so relate to what you're saying, Dawn and Adele. There's such excellent, wonderful answers that we can so connect with, and writing really has changed our lives in more ways than just us being able to have a, like, I guess, a creative outlet, which I guess would maybe be like a first answer to for some people. But it's helping you express yourself, connect with yourself, heal yourself, and it's an important thing to do, for yourself, and gives you this community as well. We love to hear it. We love hearing those answers. Fantastic. Chris, we have a question in the chat from Mary Catherine Harper that I will pop up here. And it is a question for John. Drawing on Evangelina's hope that the potato poems will fill a hunger inside. I love that. What do you think Evangelina is most hungry for? And don't say cookies. What a great question.
Oh, I think so. Evangelina is a character with a very, very busy mind. She's probably gathered in the stories I read. She's somebody who's trying to make sense of her world and trying to make sense of herself. And so, what do I think Evangelina is most hungry for? Honestly, I think she is most hungry to know herself in the world. I mean, she knows she's always moving. She's always active. She knows that, but it's a very restless sort of hunger. So I think what Evangelina is most hungry for is a way to belong and to have connection and to be connected to her own self.
Right. I feel like in each of these pieces, like she's present in them, more like in her, we're in her mind here, but it's like, well, where is she? Who is she? In this, in that doctor's appointment, that's not about her with the boob and play, and in the line with the new phone and the new social media, like, who am I? Where am I? Do I want to be the cat person? Like,
I think that phone is key. I mean, what does she want? I mean, she has that tickle. There's that tickle, right? That vibration, which is is a form of a connection.
Mm-hmm.
It's an imperfect form of connection, but I felt like her need to connect.
Yeah.
And Facebook wasn't quite cutting it, maybe, but it was sort of, there's something better out there that she needs.
Well, and she thinks she has friends and they don't come to the Christmas cookie gathering. And so those sort of things. And one thing that doesn't come across in these particular pieces is Evangelina has really forgotten her own name. Evangelina is a name she chose for herself because of her Downton Abbey obsession. And so in different stories, there are different permutations of her name and what her real name was and how all that fits. So she's really somebody who has lost herself. And
wow.
Great.
That is just so great.
I think we can switch this over to Adele with some. Your protagonist, your heroine, is on a quest and a journey, and ostensibly it's for this fabric, right? She wants to find the source of this fabric because this is her job, and this is going to save her job and everything. But of course, it's much more than that. So what I mean, I have my ideas, but what is she looking for?
At this point, I think she starts out looking for sort of revenge in a way. She has a need, and here's an opportunity for payback.
Nice.
Revenge
is good.
Yeah. But she's not very self-aware initially, or not. At the very least, I think she doesn't want to admit what it is that she really wants. Right. And there are several things. I think there's a desire for rediscovery. And sometimes in order to go forward, you have to go back to something, go back to where there was a fork in the road, and your life and your maturity and your development stopped. At least if not altogether, at least a certain aspect of it is just truncated. And until you kind of go back to that and say, okay, what happened here? because until I work through that,
Right.
I can't get beyond it. So she doesn't realize that, but she's trying to get to something and to someone, also discovering herself. But I also think, there's a bit of a vocational journey here,
Mm.
that connects up with who she is. A lot of times we choose what we do based on some aspect of who we are and what we feel called to do. I was listening to an interview with Mark Knopfler not long ago, and he was talking about songwriting. And he said, I couldn't not do it. He'd been offered a teaching job early on, and he had taken it, I think, actually, but he couldn't not write music. He couldn't not play. Thank God for that. And I feel like this is similar. You have, this is a vocational journey, I think, for her as well. She's discovering that because those two things are intertwined, who she is and what she does.
Well, yes, given her the family connection to that business, that makes total sense. And how much of this, Adele, and I want to switch over to Dawn too with this. It's like how much of this, because we know each other. We go back a ways.
Way back.
You're first generation, right? Italian, your parents, and how much did you draw from that well? Your mom was she was a tailor and a seamstress or whatever the term is. She did that for well into her old age.
Yes.
So
yeah.
Where did you? How much of the story is drawn from Adele's family, and how much is just made up?
Yeah, a lot of it is drawn from life experience. I think about, going back to the many times we went to Italy while I was growing up, and my family is in this business, and we learned so much from them. So a lot of it is drawn from, 50 years of it, literally 50 years of experience of just traveling and having gone back and forth. But what happens over time is that those experiences kind of compost. And what comes out of them, it's like something else grows out of them. But a fair amount, Chris. I think you actually met my mom from a bit of a distance once, but yeah. So a lot of it, my parents never divorced. Yes, she saw you from mom was interesting. My parents never divorced, but they almost did once, and it was over something called cipolle. So around the holidays, fried dough. It's a type of fried dough, and my mother, being ever the economist, decided to use not olive oil, but something lesser because it was less expensive.
Ugh.
And honestly, World War III. So I literally thought they were going to part ways. So anyway, welcome to Italy.
I love it. Oh my God. Adele, it's really fascinating. And it's so cool. I mean, I could feel that in some of the details, I think, and I love what you said that, all these years of experience kind of compost together and something else grows out of them with the richness and vividness of your experience, and you kind of create this story like out from that I'm sure you have experienced those white knuckle drives that I've only seen on the Travel Channel, but I can imagine that.
Amazing. So, but Dawn, so you have this character, and I'm
Midwest situation.
I'd love you to address the idea of like, how you came up with this idea of like these some long stories that add up to a much larger thing versus just saying, okay, I'm going to write a novel. Like, what was the process there? But also mixed into that, like, how do you know Evangelina? Like,
Yes.
Is Evangelina somebody that you've been in your life? Is it somebody that you know?
I feel like I've known at least a few Evangelinas in my life,
Yes, and there are, the wonderful thing about fiction really is that sort of composting that Adele talked about. You have, I grew up, first of all, I'll address the question of the fact that it's made up of short stories. I have a short attention span. So I have never been, nor will I ever be, a novelist. I mean, just plain and simple, that is not how my brain works. And the first story I wrote of Evangelina was the Evangelina Prays for Downton Abbey story, in which she's lying in bed next to her snoring, farting husband who's stealing the blankets in his sleep. And
wait a second, we've been talking to my wife?
I think it could stand in for any number of individuals, to be honest. But that is how Evangelina originally occurred to me.
Okay.
And so I wrote that story, and I'm like, oh, that's one story over and done, because a lot of my stories are just kind of one-off pieces. And lo and behold, Evangelina's voice did not leave my head for a number of years. And over those years, there was this sort of accrual of these various stories. Sometimes, I think she's very much Midwestern, first of all. I grew up in Indiana. I didn't grow up in Elkhart, Indiana, but I grew up close enough. So I'm like, that's where she's going to be from. And so when I picture the character, have any of you driven through like northern Indiana farmland?
Yes.
Ohio? So I think of Evangelina as these long, flat stretches, lots and lots of farmland. And then there will be little patches of woods, like in a corner. Not a lot of it, just a little bit. Looks very clear cut, nice square on the outside. But once you start going inside it, you get tangled up in all sorts of things. And there's interesting things growing there and living there. And that's how I think of Evangelina's mind.
Cool.
Is one of those little patches of woods that looks very ordinary from the outside, but is really this complex universe in and of itself. I will say that I did once end up at a Christmas cookie party that friends did not show up for. So I will give away that little factoid, that part was true. And I was working on Evangelina stories at that time. I am not Evangelina. My experience was not the exact same as that, but there are certain elements that I'm like, okay, if this were Evangelina and she were here right now,
what would it be?
What would be going through her head?
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, it really is that sort of composting of experiences and imagination. And everybody's had those moments in life of who am I? I don't even remember what my favorite color is. All of those sorts of things. That is the moment that Evangelina starts out from.
I love it. And that's, and in both of, for both of you, what you shared tonight, there's such a seamless richness, and it's so cool to hear all that has come out of. And, then there is just that beautiful art of putting it together and making it, this whole world and these, fully, drawn characters for us. It just really awesome work there by both of you. We want to know what happens. We need to know what happens in both pieces.
And Dawn, you say you have a short attention span. I understand what you're saying there, and at the same time, I don't know how long it took for you from the first Evangelina story to the last Evangelina story, but I imagine it was a fairly decent amount of time. So you could say you have a short attention span because you did it in like nuggets or something like that. Yes. But you lived with Evangelina for a long time.
Evangelina was in my head from start to finish being publication, because I thought I was finished with the book 3 years before I was. And then I went back into the editing stages, and lo and behold, she had more stories. So Evangelina was in my head for about 10 years. She still was in there. Every once in a while, I still hear her voice if I'm observing something in the world. Yes.
That's what I'm thinking. I don't want to curse you, but you could
sequel.
You could write a novel. No, you could write a novel. If you lived with Evangelina for 10 years, Jesus.
I could, but man, I kind of want her out of my head. I want somebody else in there right now.
Dawn, it's like she is searching so hard for her place and her connection that she's coming through. She is kind of just staying with you. I think that's such an interesting thing about this character that she so wants to be heard and found and present and identified in these different places. That is so cool.
She's a very vivid character. Now, this is a question for Adele, but it really applies to both of you. Characters are so often seen as based on, influenced by the writer's experiences, as we were saying before. But to what extent do our characters' experiences also affect, even change, the way we writers see the world?
Awesome question.
Yeah, it is. So I think that often comes. Thanks, Mary Catherine. It's a great question. I think that insight often comes with a little bit of distance. So the novel that is coming out, this novel that I read from tonight, that's coming out with Bordighera, was finished a while ago and made the round of a number of agents and got a number of requests, and then one offered publication. It didn't work out at that time, and I'm glad it didn't for a number of reasons, because in the meantime, a lot of things happened. A, my mother passed. B, we had COVID, and almost in that, right around that same order. So it caused me to really step back, and I was able, because some aspects of the novel are based on things that happened, I was able to step back and say and remember. So that's a gift. So that was helpful. So it helped with memory. It sparked memory. It sparked realization. And something that Anne-Marie Soma, who is also a member of the Fairfield community, our community, said once about Italy, is that we discovered joy there. And I thought, oh my goodness, that is exactly right. So the ability to feel joy is something that I think I learned from the experiences that went into this novel. And by the way, a quick shout out to Pete Nelson. If this novel has a plot, he's part of the reason why, because in the beginning it was like, I don't know. So anyway, so you learn, I think distance is helpful.
That's awesome. Just so many like just little wonderful pearls in what you said there too, Adele. Like just yes. And and Dawn, I think we can share this question with you as well. To what extent do our characters' experiences also affect or even change the way we writers see the world?
I gain empathy when I work with a character, and I, in retrospect, a lot of my writing, especially my early writing, I'm somebody that hasn't always understood people very well. I mean, some writers fit that category. And so when I'm able to be in a character's mind and body and maneuvering in their environment, I experience the world differently. I don't always realize it when it's happening, but I do think a side effect really is empathy, not just for my characters, but for other people that I encountered. And so, over the few decades that I've written, strangely enough, I've become a person who rather enjoys talking to people and finding out their stories. And I don't think I was that way when I started writing. But I am that way now, and I'm increasingly curious and kind of passionate about people's stories and where they come from, partly because I've worked on my own characters.
Awesome, Dawn. That is so cool. We love to hear about all of these wonderful revelations and changes that happen to us in the process of our our writing and discovering and just continuing to grow. That is just so cool. Chris, I think it's time for our famous last double question.
So Adele, first, a pearl of wisdom. You've been teaching for for many years, be teaching writing. Of course, you've been in workshops yourselves as a participant, and et cetera, et cetera. Give us lay down a pearl of wisdom for the youngsters out there who are looking for pearls, and then when you've done that, give us a book recommendation, something that tickles your fancy lately.
Yeah. So one of the best workshops I think I ever took was cross genre. So it was a cross genre at Fairfield that combined. It was almost like a joke because we had a Buddhist, an evangelical Christian, and a priest came into our workshop. They were actually leading it for the week. So it was a spirituality in writing workshop. It was also cross genre.
That's awesome.
And that was really helpful. That part of the germ that became this novel came out of that. But the 10 pages I submitted were all crap, except one scene, and it was less than a page, and it was totally humiliating. I made an ass out of myself in public because I had a meltdown in front of everybody in this workshop. But my pearl of wisdom would be cross genre, and don't be afraid to screw up, because a lot of times that moment where you feel the worst is revelatory of something important that just happened.
Awesome.
So don't be afraid to screw up. I do it all the time.
I love that, Adele. That is awesome.
Did you go to a bar with all those people?
We should have. We laughed. We laughed. We cried. We ate. We laughed. We should have gone to a bar.
That's amazing.
They walked into a bar. Anyway, book recommendation, Adele. Something that.
Okay, so book recommendation. So a craft book that I would recommend is John Gardner's work on I think it's The Art of Fiction.
Yeah.
Another book would be a big work of fiction. I know it's definitive. That and On Becoming a Novelist. Those two. Yeah, exactly. That, and also by Gardner on Becoming a Novelist. Another work of fiction, amazing, William Giraldi's Hold the Dark. He's a wonderful writer, and that's an excellent book.
Hold the Dark. Cool.
Thank you so much, Adele. Awesome pearls, awesome recommendations. Dawn, over to you. Share a pearl with us and a recommendation.
Okay. And once again, I'm going to second a lot of what Adele said. I would add to that, trust that your voice matters. I think that would be my pearl of wisdom. And I would say that whether you are a fiction writer, whether you are an accountant, whether you are a college freshman getting ready to start at MSU in a couple of days, trust that your voice matters and that you have a story to share. And that it doesn't have to be perfect. I was thinking about this earlier today. It's not about perfection. It's about continually learning and continually growing. I'm brand new to the MSU position, and one thing I love about the first year writing program is that emphasis on, you screw up a paper maybe, but if you learned something in reflecting on that experience, that's what matters. And maybe you have those 10 pages, and maybe one paragraph is what matters, and that's what you go with. And so I think over the years, that has just become more and more how I think about writing, how I think about sharing stories, whatever format, whatever genre, written or not, they come in. So that would probably be my pearl. Gosh, in terms of something I've read recently that I would recommend, I would say in terms of craft, I'm just going to go back to Anne Lamott's Shitty First Drafts, which is something I'll be teaching later this week to my incoming students. That first thing you write doesn't have to be the end all and be all, doesn't even have to see the light of day, but that is the starting place. And I would say in terms of a book that I read recently that really impressed me in terms of crossing over sort of genres between, kind of a study of another literary figure and someone's own autobiography. I'm going to get her name wrong. I think the title is My Autobiography of Carson McCullers by Shepland, I think. Jen Shepland, I think is their last name. I have to look that up. But it was a brilliant and surprising book to me because it's both about the writer's experience as a queer person and her own history and her own background, and then her engagement with studying Carson McCullers, her life as a writer. And so it's just, I mean, I always love the blurring between fiction and nonfiction anyways, but I think it's just a brilliantly done piece of writing that does cross over those lines, jumping back and forth repeatedly and doing both masterfully. So that would be my recommendation.
Great.
That is so fantastic. Thank you so much for those pearls, for those recommendations, and for being with us this evening, Adele Annesi and John Burns.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. The pleasure is all ours. Your readings were incredible and just so wonderful to hear from you now in our Q&A. We hope we can invite you back sometime soon. And everybody out there, thank you for watching, and make sure you go and go and follow Adele Annesi and John Burns online and get a hold of what they have out there.
You can refresh your memories about all that on our Facebook page.
Yes, got links.
If you happen to have Facebook, but you can Google them, you'll find them, and it might even tickle them in their left-hand pocket when you Google them. I don't know.
Possibility. Yeah.
That sounds so good.
Just a reminder: next week we're off.
That's right. Labor Day weekend.
We'll be back in 2 weeks, and it's going to be great. So.
It's going to be awesome. So we'll see you 2 weeks from now. Have a fabulous Labor Day weekend. Thank you so much, Adele Annesi, John Burns, and all of our audience. Everybody, have a great night.
Peace.
Thank you.